galaxy's most powerful armada entered human space. Then every warship went dark. Admiral Threx had conquered 11 star systems without losing a single capital ship. Now, floating dead in the black 30 light minutes from Earth, his flagship's reactor cold and silent, he understood for the first time in his 400-year life what it meant to be afraid.
Report.
He rasped into a comm panel that no longer glowed. Nothing answered. Not because his crew refused him, because the entire ship, all 900 meters of Kaalveth military engineering, had simply stopped. Lights out, engines dead, weapons cold. Around him, spread across 100,000 kilometers of empty space, the 700 warships of the Convergence Armada, the largest fleet ever assembled by any species in recorded galactic history, drifted in identical silence. No explosions, no boarding parties, no warning shot, just darkness, and the growing certainty that something out there had reached into 700 ships simultaneously and turned them off like candles. But none of this had begun that way. Dusk 6 days earlier. The Convergence had been built on a simple, brutal philosophy. Overwhelming force ends resistance before it begins. 19 species bound under the Kaalveth banner, their fleets merged into a single armada so vast that no world had ever survived first contact with it intact. Surrender was the only rational response. Threx had personally accepted the capitulation of 11 civilizations, and each time the pattern held. Show the armada, and resistance evaporated. Earth was supposed to be the 12th. Human space had been catalogued by Kaalveth scout drones 8 years prior. The reports were almost insultingly unremarkable. A single inhabited world, a handful of orbital stations, colonies still confined to their own solar system. No visible planetary defense grid. No detected capital-class warships. Radio chatter suggested a species obsessed with entertainment media, sports, and, bafflingly, arguing with itself online. They will fold in the first hour, Threx's chief strategist, Sela had told the War Council. There is nothing here to fight with. Threx had believed her. That belief was his first mistake. The Armada crossed into the outer edge of Sol System on a Tuesday. Not that the Kaalveth used Earth's calendar, but the humans would later insist on that detail, because it amused them to imagine an alien invasion arriving on a day named for a war god, and ending in humiliation before lunch. The Council had made a terrible mistake, and they didn't even know it yet. 700 ships, 2 million crew, weapons capable of glassing a planet's surface in under 6 hours. The Armada advanced in the standard Kaalveth intimidation formation, a slow, deliberate crawl designed to let a target species watch the fleet grow larger in their telescopes for days. Let dread compound before a single shot was fired. Earth's response was silence. No fleet rose to meet them. No distress signals scattered across the system. No diplomatic hail begging for terms. Sela found the silence unsettling in a way she couldn't articulate to the Council, but Threx dismissed it as paralysis. Prey species froze before predators. It was natural. Expected. It was not paralysis. It was patience. And the humans had learned patience the hard way. Across 10,000 years of history the Kaalveth had never bothered to study. 3 days into the advance, the first anomaly appeared. A Kaalveth reconnaissance drone, running standard passive scans ahead of the main fleet, detected a gravitational distortion near the orbit of what humans called Jupiter. Not a ship, not a station, a ripple, there and gone in under 2 seconds. Like something enormous had briefly existed, and then chosen not to. Sela flagged it. Threx dismissed it as sensor drift. That wasn't even the strangest reading they'd get that week. The following day, 17 automated Kaalveth probes scattered throughout the system, designed to map defenses and relay real-time battle data back to the Armada, stopped transmitting within the same 11-second window. No distress signal, no wreckage detected. They were simply gone from the network, as though something had reached out and gently closed a hand around each one. Debris field? Threx asked. There's no debris, Sela said. There's no anything. They stopped existing on our sensors. All 17, simultaneously. For the first time, a flicker of unease crossed Threx's 400-year-old face. He buried it beneath 4 centuries of command discipline and ordered the fleet to hold formation. Confidence, he reminded his officers, was the Convergence's greatest weapon. A species this primitive could not possibly be responsible. It had to be a natural phenomenon, an asteroid field with unusual magnetic properties, a solar anomaly, anything except what his instincts were quietly screaming at him. He would remember that decision for the rest of his life, however long that turned out to be. 2 days out from Earth, the Armada received its first and only transmission from the humans. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a threat. It was a single woman's voice, calm, almost gentle, broadcast on every frequency the Kaalveth fleet monitored simultaneously, An act of technical precision that should have been impossible for a species with no detected capital ships. This is Fleet Admiral Renata Osei of the Sol Defense Authority. You are approaching an inhabited system in what we can only interpret as a hostile posture. We would prefer this not become a war. You have 6 hours to alter course. After that, we cannot guarantee your safety. The council chamber erupted in something between laughter and outrage. Your safety, a species with no visible fleet, threatening the largest armada in galactic history, with no ships to back the words. Sela Kor did not laugh. She stared at the message's technical signature, the sheer bandwidth required to blanket 700 ships across every channel at once, and felt something cold settle in her chest. Admiral, she said quietly, we should consider retreating. Threx looked at her as though she'd suggested surrendering to a house bet. Log the transmission as a bluff. Increase speed. I want to be in orbit within 40 hours. The humans had given them a warning. The Armada had 6 hours. They used every one of them to advance. One day before the blackout, what the Kaalveth didn't know, what no species outside Sol had ever been permitted to know, was that Earth had not spent its silent, awkward, thoroughly unimpressive first century of interstellar awareness building starships for show. They'd spent it building the Dreadnought. Officially, it did not exist. Unofficially, it was the single largest engineering undertaking in human history, constructed in absolute secrecy across 2 decades inside a hollowed-out asteroid beyond Neptune, crewed by 12,000 of the most vetted, disciplined, and quietly terrified human beings ever assembled into a single command structure. It was called Ashborn. And it was not merely a warship. It was a statement built by a species that had learned, through 2 world wars and a cold one, that peace only holds when the alternative is unthinkable. Ashborn carried something no other fleet in the galaxy had ever fielded. A resonance disruption array, capable of collapsing the energy containment fields that every known starship design relied upon to keep their reactors stable. Turn it on near an enemy fleet, and every reactor in range didn't explode. It simply stopped. No casualties, no wreckage, no war crime to answer for. Just 700 of the galaxy's most feared warships, sitting dead and helpless, their crews alive, frightened, and completely at humanity's mercy. Admiral Osei had authorized its use with a single condition, spoken to her command crew the night before. Nobody dies today unless they force our hand. We're not here to prove we can kill them. We're here to prove they don't need to fear us if they choose peace. The truth was, nobody in the Armada had any idea a ship like this could even exist. That ignorance was about to cost them everything they thought they understood about the galaxy's balance of power. The blackout. The moment came without fanfare. Ashborn dropped its stealth field 30 light minutes from Earth, directly in the Armada's path, and it was the sheer size of the ship that broke Kaalveth morale before a single system failed. 18 kilometers of dark hull, utterly silent, utterly still, hanging in space like a mountain that had learned to fly. Then the resonance array activated. Threx felt his own bridge die around him. Lights, gravity plating, weapons, all gone in the same heartbeat. Across the Armada, 700 ships suffered the identical fate within 11 seconds of each other. Emergency battery power kept life support running. Barely, but every warship in the Convergence Armada was now, functionally, a very expensive coffin drifting in the dark. Fear took over, and for the first time in 400 years, Threx Valor did not know what to do next. Distress calls flooded the Armada's short-range emergency channels, not requests for backup, because there was no backup to call, but simple confirmation between ships that yes, this was happening to everyone, that no, this wasn't a targeted strike on one vessel, that the humans had somehow disabled an entire armada without firing a single shot. Sela Kor, working by the glow of a hand-cranked emergency lantern, found Threx in the darkened command chair, staring at nothing. They didn't kill us, she said slowly, working through the implication in real time. They could have killed us. 700 ships, dead in space, no shields, no weapons. A single volley would end the Convergence as a fighting force forever. And they haven't fired.
Why?
Threx's voice cracked, the first crack in 4 centuries of composure. I don't know, Sela admitted, but I think we're about to find out. Ashborn extended a single shuttle bay and a small unarmed craft drifted toward the flagship. Slow, deliberate, no escort, no weapons visible. An act of vulnerability so total that half the Kaalveth bridge crew assumed it was a trick before Sela pointed out the obvious. A species that had just disabled 700 warships without a shot fired did not need tricks. Admiral Renata Osei boarded the dead Kaalveth flagship with 4 unarmed crew and a translator drone, walking through corridors lit only by emergency lanterns, past officers too stunned and frightened to do anything but stare. She found Threx in his powerless command chair and did not gloat. She did not posture. She simply sat across from him in the dark and said, "We told you 6 hours, we meant it. You could have destroyed us," Threx said. "It wasn't a question, we could have." Osei agreed. "Every ship in your armada gone, and there was nothing you could have done to stop it. We chose not to. That was never about weakness, Admiral. It was a choice. There's a difference, and I need you to understand it, because it's the only reason you and your crews are still breathing right now." Nobody knew what the human was hiding, until she said the next part, and the entire bridge went silent. "We've been watching your convergence for 6 years, Osei continued. 11 systems, 11 surrenders, and in every single one, once the surrender was signed, your terms got worse. Resource extraction quotas, forced conscription, cultural erasure programs disguised as integration. We didn't invite you here to talk about a truce, Admiral. We invited you here to end that pattern, today." Threx said nothing. There was nothing to say. A species he'd dismissed as prey, incapable of even detecting his fleet's approach without panic, had not only detected it, they'd studied it, catalogued its every cruelty across 11 conquered worlds, and built a weapon specifically to stop it without killing a single Kaalveth crew member in the process. "What happens now?" he finally asked. "Now," Osei said, "you go home. Your reactors come back online the moment you're past the heliopause. That's roughly 6 hours from here, matching the courtesy you were given. You'll carry a message to every species under Convergence control. Humanity isn't interested in conquest, but we will not allow this system, or any system, to be the 12th entry on your list. And Admiral, the 11 systems you already hold? We know where they are now, too." That wasn't even the biggest surprise. Selachor, watching from the shadows, realized the human hadn't come to threaten a war. She'd come to end 11 of them, all at once, with a single sentence. The Convergence Armada limped out of Sol System 6 hours later, exactly as promised. Reactors flickering back to life the instant the fleet crossed the heliopause boundary, as though a great hand had simply let go. No shots had been fired, no lives had been lost, and yet every officer aboard those 700 ships understood, with absolute clarity, that they had just witnessed the most complete demonstration of restrained power in the history of the galaxy. The story spread faster than any Kaalveth propaganda ministry could contain it. Within a month, whispers reached the conquered systems. Velkir Prime, the Acorn Belt, the Threx cluster, that the Armada sent to break humanity had instead been broken by a single ship and sent home intact, humiliated but alive, carrying a message that the era of quiet conquest might finally be ending. Threx Valor never commanded another fleet. He spent his remaining years quietly, almost obsessively, studying the species he had once dismissed as prey, and the deeper he looked, the more he understood that humanity's real weapon had never been Ashborn at all. It had been Restraint. The terrifying disciplined choice not to use overwhelming power, even when they held every reason to the galaxy would spend the next century learning to fear that kind of strength most of all. The kind that could end you completely, and chose mercy instead. Admiral Renata Osei never spoke publicly about that day. When asked, decades later, why humanity hadn't simply destroyed the Armada when it had the chance, she gave the same answer every time, the one that would eventually be carved beneath a small, unremarkable memorial near the shipyard that built Ashborn. "We didn't build the biggest gun in the galaxy to prove we could pull the trigger. We built it so we'd never have to.